Welcome to The Detail. I am your host, Kathy Antunes, and you are listening to The Detail on WSLR 96.5 LPFM in Sarasota, Florida. And as always, the views expressed on The Detail are not necessarily the views of WSLR staff or administration or donors. With me today is attorney Richard A. Harrison. Richard Harrison is board certified in city, county, and local government law by the Florida Bar and has represented local governments and public officials across the state for more than 35 years. Mr. Harrison practices law in Tampa, but again, has practiced all over the state. He has served as an expert witness for the Florida Commission on Ethics in the prosecution of a local government attorney. You can find more information about his practice at harrisonpa.com. Mr. Harrison, thank you for joining me today. Richard, if I may call you Richard.
Please do. And good morning, Kathy, and good morning, Sarasota. I love your city.
Yes, we love it too. And it's a special place to live. And it's become kind of notorious these days nationally regarding politics. But today we're going to national politics. But today we're going to be talking about city politics. And the reason you're joining me today is last week, January 16th, there was a situation at a city commission meeting brought forward by City Commissioner Kyle Batty that set off a lot of alarm bells and concern among citizens who closely watch city government. And essentially, Mr. Commissioner Batty brought forward a document in a city commission meeting that was attributed to a local watchdog citizen, Kelly Franklin, who, full disclosure, I know Kelly, she's a friend of mine. I did email the city commission about this in real time when I saw what was happening. But this post, which smeared Commissioner Batty, was attributed and appeared, this document appeared that it was authored by Kelly Franklin. What I'd like to do for people, I'm going to play excerpts from the city commission meeting. It's always great to hear things straight from the horse's mouth. But what I want to tell our listeners is, if you really want to see the whole thing, it's not possible for me to play everything in this show. Go to the January, it's sarasotaflorida.gov is the website for the city. Go to meetings and agendas. You can pull up the January 16th City Commission meeting, and it's time point, like 49 minutes into the meeting, this issue is addressed, and then it comes up again at about 6 hours and 30 minutes. I always appreciate seeing the entire thing, but I'm going to play you excerpts today that I think are fair and give a synopsis. Commissioner Batty brought forward an agenda item, and we can get to this part later because I do want to talk about process. But the agenda actually had to be rearranged, right? In real time. Like, he brought forward something that was unusual, and he requested that it be put under unfinished business when in fact it had never been brought forward before, but he wanted to talk about this before the public hearings. So that was granted, excuse me, by his colleagues. So let me go to the screen. I'm going to intend to put this up on YouTube later, but I want everybody to have the opportunity.
That's in the email. This is a copy of something that came to me. This is a business in downtown Sarasota. I'm doing a ribbon cutting. The woman sitting next to me is half African American and half Scottish. Here I am doing a ribbon cutting with another person of African American descent. And this here is equating me and her to a primate, a gorilla, an ape, a monkey. You want to talk about public discourse? You want to talk about public civility? We have kids in these chambers right now, and no one can ever say that I've ever spoken to a child and said to them, and not said to them, I don't expect you to be me, and I don't expect you to be like me. I expect each and every one of them to be better than me, and to be better than this. This is on someone's social media page. Now, if you're saying that in public, what are you saying behind closed doors? With all the things that they have at their access today, they should not be subjected to this. We should not be subjected to this. I should not be subjected to this. Because you don't like my votes. I don't mind you disagreeing with me, or because you have a different perspective and opinion than I do. But I expect you to do so based on the merit, not on the color of my skin. Not only to call me out of my name, but to call me out of my own species. This is sick, abhorrent, and egregious. Because even when I was running, campaigning, it was an individual that was running around lying, saying that I was gay. You can say what you want to, man. Just say that whatever you say is true. But I don't care about that. What I do care about, and I have vehemently abhor, is the fact that you would say such a thing and lie on a person in a fashion that as though it's an indictment against people that are. It's sick. And these people are on a board. Was it City PAC? They represent them. This woman's their mouthpiece.
I was going to stop the recording there because that's the gist of the accusation. And for those, who couldn't, obviously you're listening, you can't see, but there was a social media post, and the name on it is Kelly Franklin. And it shows Commissioner Batty at a ribbon cutting at a local business, Corona Cigar Bar, and I believe one of the owners of the bar. And then there are gorillas that have been photoshopped into the photo. I mean, it clearly is a photoshopped photo, but then one of the things that also in the documentation, which was not part of the agenda pack, usually if a commissioner is going to rely on a document, it is in the agenda so people can see it. That's customary procedure. But underneath this purported, what it was clearly supposed to look like a social media post from Kelly Franklin, it says underneath in a different typeface, "Sorry, I can't find the original." And it's a crumpled up piece of paper. So, Mr. Harrison, just the floor is yours. What do you have to say about it?
Well, let's be even a little more precise about what Commissioner Batty displayed in the public meeting.
Mhm.
It is a photograph of a crumpled up piece of paper.
Yes.
Has been uncrumpled and folded out. So someone had the crumpled up piece of paper in their physical possession and took a photograph of it, which was then sent by one of the Corona cigar owners to Commissioner Batty. And what he showed was that photograph that was texted to him. So we have a photograph of a crumpled up hard copy of what is supposed to be a Facebook post on Kelly's personal Facebook page.
And we know it was texted to him from the meeting, or?
We know how he got it.
Okay. So, you know, one of the things about this, because obviously that kind of a photograph, you know, where you've got African American people being, you know, equated with gorillas, it's a horrible thing. It's an awful thing. It's meant to demean. And I think part of the reason the public outcry to support Ms. Franklin, because she's all about equal rights. Is the woman I know would never create this or distribute anything like that. She's quite the opposite. But you know, people may remember. I'm old enough to remember when you know, Oprah Winfrey had a guest on her show who made a racial smear like that, and that was the end of the show. You know, this is an old trope. George Allen, when he was running for, I believe he was running for president, he talked about used something about we don't want to monkey this up. I mean, there's a long-standing smear, right? Which is horrible. And no one's saying that's not the case. I mean, that is the reason. I think it was interesting to me to watch some of the reaction, because the reason people were so upset and Kelly was so upset is it's kind of implied. We all know this is horrible, right? I mean,
Yeah, well, I might be a few years older than you. I'm old enough to remember when famous sportscaster Howard Cosell did Monday Night Football,
Howard Cosell.
made a completely innocent comment about one of the players on the Redskins, but used the word monkey. And of course, Howard Cosell was known for strongly speaking out in favor of equal rights. And it really caused him a lot of serious flack and may have cost him the gig. So yes, if someone had posted a photograph of Commissioner Batee with some other African-American folks in it and said anything that involved gorillas or monkeys, we can all agree that that would be a horribly racist thing for anybody to do.
Right.
The problem we have here is it didn't happen. And you know, you hinted at this. I did not know Kelly before this. And just so we're clear, I suppose, let me give a disclaimer. I am now representing Kelly Franklin. I'm her lawyer. Did not know her before this. So when I was contacted about this, I did what I think any reasonable person would do. I said, well, let me go look at her Facebook page and see what I see. In about 30 seconds, you know, you can tell pretty clearly from her Facebook page and from her communications and from the things that she talks about that this is not a person who's going to be making a racist post, right?
No.
Completely obvious. And yeah, it's so here we are. So he drops this bomb in public, where Kelly is not in attendance and has no opportunity to defend herself.
And by the way, she communicates with the city commission all the time. It's not like there's not an opportunity to get in touch with her. She's not hard to track down. I was surprised there was no reaching out to her.
Well, she had actually, when the item appeared on the agenda that was added under the topic of civility and respect, how ironic is that? He had actually sent a positive comment reacting to that. So yeah, we ought to talk about civility and respect. Of course, not expecting that Batee was going to attack her publicly.
Yeah, I want to go to their discussion, if we can, about the agenda, because the thing for me that's odd is there's a process to put something on the agenda, and it's hard to believe that he was the only person who knew about this ahead of time. It's just that's kind of a tough one to
and before you play the next clip, I
Mhm.
did not hear, I was not able to hear the audio on the previous clip, and I don't know if
Oh,
it's you muted, or if it just wasn't playing.
oh, all right. Well, if it's not playing, then forget it. We're not going to, it should play. Tell me if you hear this.
Please, please.
Can you hear that, Richard?
New business agenda.
Yeah.
item number 12.
So I think it's because you muted.
Comprehensive review
Oh.
of City of Sarasota zoning code per the request of Commissioner Batty. Second item, please add underneath.
All right, if that's the case, I think I probably need to go back and play what happened. A little bit of it anyway, because it's pretty much the key issue. Or I'll just summarize, and my apologies to the audience, but what, Kyle Betty just showed, this social media post that he was talking about how inappropriate it was. So yeah, let's go to the agenda discussion now.
So the zoning code per the request of Commissioner Batty. Second item, please add under new business agenda item number 12.2, discussion rate, civility, respect, and rhetoric per the request of Commissioner Batty. And notice all the changes to it.
If I can make a change from it. It's like the new, item. That, civility, what item, what number is that?
12.2,
12.2, and unfinished. There's just a move it up.
so that will be up to the commission to decide if you all are willing to accept, Commissioner Batty move agenda item 12.2 under unfinished business. And your vote or just a consensus would be great if you have, I'm fine with that. Everybody okay with that? Just curious why.
It's like to, speak to the commission before we get this out of the way.
It's the same order, right? No.
Items on the new business, so it doesn't affect the consensus, so we'll have to take a vote.
I'm sorry, I'm just, I'm still not clear on why the request is there.
Primarily, I just wanted, to do this, just to get this civility situation, public, civility, discourse out of the way before we start, dealing with the rest of the meeting.
For 10.3, so basically the same order?
So we're moving on to fish business.
Unfinished business, it said. So it will be an unfinished business item now. It'll go before the public hearings. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, I was looking at legislative public hearings. No, I get it now. Okay.
I understand why he wants to move it. I just don't understand that this is unfinished business. Did the discussion of this start before I joined the commission?
I get what you're saying, and it is always totally up to the commission how you want to have agenda items on it. So if that is the will of the commission, that's what we do. So
And Commissioners, one of the things that Commissioner Batty shared with me is that since we have received public hearings coming, and obviously there are items that are going to, where there will be a lot of discussion. He wanted to have that discussion to have that civility discussion with the public hearings. So again, it's up to the commission, you can be the board on it, or you can do that myself.
I'm okay with it. Okay, now I understand where it's going on the agenda. I was confused. Okay. All right, we're good.
Okay, so there we go. I mean, it was kind of Kyle Betty in his comments before I did get confirmation the audience did hear what Commissioner Betty said earlier.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that's good. Moving this to unfinished business, it had never been discussed before. It wasn't unfinished business. And the intention was to have this civility, it was called a civility discussion, to have it before agenda items, where one of the advocacy groups, City PAC, I believe, was going to be talking. So, and again, can you share with me, because it's always been my understanding that if there's going to be documentation shared in a city commission meeting, that the process is to put it in the agenda packet. And that didn't happen here. How important is that?
Well, it's important and it's very typical in an ordinary city commission, city council, county commission setting. Yes, each board member would receive in advance the agenda for the meeting with all the relevant backup. One, so they have a chance to digest the material, and to understand things that they may be asked to vote on. Two, so they have notice of what's coming in front of them and can prepare. So that's very typical. Now, it's not really unusual for a commissioner or a board member to ask for an item to be added to the agenda. That happens with some frequency. But ordinarily, you would expect whatever that item is to come with the appropriate backup documentation. Now, clearly in this case, Commissioner Batty knew perfectly well what he was going to be presenting. Why did he not submit that to the clerk or the city manager or whoever is responsible for preparing the agenda and the materials and distributing it to the other commission members and to the city attorney? I think the answer is fairly obvious. He didn't do it because he didn't want anybody to know what was coming. Because probably somebody with half a brain would have talked him out of it.
Well, that's the thing, I've served on boards in totally different context, but explaining to people, and this was a money situation because of a fiduciary duty of a board protects the officers, it protects, in this situation, having somebody look at what you're doing and have a heads up is actually a protection for Commissioner Batty. And
well, yeah, and I know we want to talk about the issue and how it affects Kelly and all of those things,
Yeah.
but there's another issue that I think Sarasota residents ought to be concerned about here, which is to the extent that Commissioner Batty seems to have calculated and planned this all very carefully to the point of requesting an agenda item, not supplying backup. Did he unwittingly drag other city employees into this and take advantage of them? If the city clerk is a person who prepares the agenda and a commissioner says, "Hey, I'd like to add this," okay, they've got no reason to think he would do something crazy, right?
right.
And then to use the forum and the power and the stage of the commission meeting to make a purely personal attack on a resident. Aside from all the other legal consequences that may flow from this, and there are going to be legal consequences. There is an argument that could be made here that the commissioner misused public resources to pursue a purely personal attack on Kelly. And there may be other consequences that flow from that.
Yeah, because the background of this for people who watch city government is this came via a vendor, a business owner, Corona Cigar Bar. They gave public input. Tanya, the co-owner, Tanya Borishewitz, gave input. This wasn't sent to City Hall. This was sent to the business. And there's a close relationship there between that business and Commissioner Batty. And Kelly Franklin is a critic of that business. But let's talk about, because I've never seen this kind of an attack on a citizen by a public official in a public meeting using documentation that had not been verified. And one of the things I remarked upon, Commissioner Batty said many, many times, "I hope this is not true. I hope this is not true," dozens of times, which to me says, you haven't verified this, and what has the impact been on Ms. Franklin?
Right. Again, there's just so many questions about all of this, but I can tell you, I have been around boards and commissions for 35 years.
Mhm.
In my role as a lawyer, representing people before commissions, in my role representing boards and commissions themselves. I've sat at the commission table in hundreds of meetings
Mhm.
and advised boards and commissions. I have seen some very heated discussions. I've seen heated discussions between members of the same board. I've seen heated discussions where a board or commission is criticizing, a city manager or a
Mhm.
county official. Um, and those things can get very heated. Uh,
Mhm.
I have never in 35 years seen any elected official use the public forum to intentionally, deliberately launch an attack on a private citizen,
Mhm.
ever. And I've never seen anything remotely approaching that. So you would think that if somehow you got to the point that you thought that was a good idea, you would think you would very carefully vet that information. You
Mhm.
would do something to verify. And I want to be very careful about making sure we separate what we know from what we have heard, because those are not the same thing. You just mentioned in passing that this crumpled up piece of paper was sent to the Corona cigar business. We don't know that. That's what
Okay.
somebody from Corona said.
That's right. That's what she testified to.
That's what, well, and she didn't testify because she wasn't under oath.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
So we're going to
Mhm.
see what the story turns out to be when I have all these people under oath. And I am not going to be shocked if we hear something very, very different than what's been told to us publicly.
Okay.
Starting to put that together now.
Mhm. Excuse me. Um, one of my colleagues, there's some people who might want to say, "Oh, just let's move on. This was stupid." But when you're the person who's been the target, right, of this kind of a smear and the impact it can have, it can be a career-ending thing. It can be the end of any respect from your neighbors if they believe it. Um, and I spoke with Ms. Franklin the day of to verify that this was not true. I mean, knowing her, I thought this can't be true, and it wasn't. She says she never did this, but I haven't spoken with her since. Can you share how she's doing with this? Because it's not the first time I've seen her attacked. It's this just the worst.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Kelly, as you know, is a very strong person. And there will be a time where she gets to speak for herself. So
Right.
I think she's holding up, as well as you might expect. Um,
Hmm.
but, what a horrible thing to be accused of, and what a horrible thing to be accused of when, in fact, the person you're accusing is so clearly not that, right?
Oh yeah.
And to do this with no verify, not even an attempt to verify. I mean, I'll tell you
Mhm.
what I did. I told you I looked at her Facebook page when I was first contacted. You know, I went to
Mhm.
her Facebook page, which has been set to public. Here's another interesting thing. Her Facebook page has been public this whole time. If this post, racist as it is, and it's racist as hell,
Yeah.
that post had been on her Facebook page, how is it that nobody saw it? Because it was public the whole time. Uh, I went to her Facebook page, went to the little search button, typed in the word gorilla. Okay, guess what popped up? Her
Mhm.
actual post from her safari trip that
Mhm.
did use the same words in the post that Batty presented. So the text was lifted from that with her beautiful, stunning photographs of the wild gorillas.
Yeah, I want to stop you there because Ron Cashton, her husband, later on, so this came up early on in the meeting, and Mayor Albert actually said we're going to close the comments on this, but later on in the day, she opened it up to public comment, I think because there was such public outcry. So I want to play for the audience now what Ron Cashton had to say. Now, and just for the background, Ron Cashin filed to run for city commission. Liz Alpert for District 2, and Mayor Alpert is the incumbent, and she is filed to run. And Eric Arroyo has also filed to run for city commission, which just adds another dynamic to the situation. So here we go. This is Ron Cashton giving public input at the city commission meeting about what happened to his wife that morning.
Thank you, Mayor. Ron Cashin, concerned resident and husband of Kelly Franklin. And I am running for city commission. You raised that as part of the discussion. A lot of my friends had told me, crazy to do. You're enjoying life. Don't get involved in the city commission. Don't get involved in city politics because it'll get dirty. And I thought, well, I'm retired, I'm well off, don't have kids. I have time to give to my community, same way that my wife does. Let me talk to you about my wife, Kelly Franklin. And I do appreciate that another commissioner talked about the email that they had gotten. So Kelly, as many of you have known, is diagnosed with a very, very serious illness. It's mantle cell lymphoma. And sorry, it's okay. Is mantle cell lymphoma. And that means she's immune compromised. And during COVID, because Kelly takes a lot of photos, we decided to risk her life to do a once in a lifetime trip to Rwanda. Because she photographs always wanted to see the gorillas in Rwanda. Because you know what? When she goes to Moffitt and she goes through all the different infusions, which is why you guys get emails at 2:30 or 1:30 in the morning, is because she's trying to deal with the treatment that she has. And so we did go to Rwanda. And fortunately, the experimental drugs that Kelly is taking is working, and she's still alive. A prognosis that we did not get when we went to Rwanda. And going back to this was some sick individual that not only denigrated Commissioner Batty, well, just because Commissioner Batty, but also ended up denigrating Kelly and her professional career. I get congratulations. Well, I mentioned to Mr. Brown and several of you that I am going to use whatever resources it takes to hire whatever professionals we need to first hunt down the person that did this, to investigate the information and get to the bottom of this, whether it's civil or criminal, we will find the answers, and that I can assure you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so that was Ron Cashton and giving public input to the city commission. My guest today is Richard Harrison. He is an attorney representing Kelly Franklin, who was the subject of what appears to be a terrible smear at the January 16th City Commission meeting. You are listening to The Detail on WSLR 96.5 LPFM in Sarasota, Florida. Programming at WSLR is supported by listeners like you, and by Ringling Galleries and Exhibition. Ringling College's 2023-24 exhibition season features art from Ringling students, alumni, faculty, and nationally recognized artists from a wide range of mediums and from diverse backgrounds. More information is available at ringlingcollege.gallery. So back to you, Richard Harrison, and Ron Cashton's input. I think if you didn't know Kelly, given her tireless advocacy, you might not know she was ill, but she's quite ill. You know, she's dealing with a very serious condition. And I've seen her photographs of Africa. To have them misused that way must be something.
Yeah, and credit to Ron for who had to be as shocked as anybody sitting there hearing this. Credit to him for putting together a strong statement in defense of his wife.
Mhm.
Everybody, I think, was shocked by this personal attack. And you saw other people sitting on either side of Ron in that video who later spoke. I think the reason that the mayor reopened the discussion after the break was because they had received so much input.
Mhm.
Number one, pointing out how this was so clearly a hoax, not even a good one, a clownishly bad hoax.
Yeah.
And how he was attacking this citizen. And to her credit, let's give the mayor some credit. I think she did the right thing by reopening that item.
She did. Yeah.
I think she was working really hard to get the message to Batty that maybe you ought to apologize before this meeting's over.
Yeah.
Uh,
Which brings me again to, there was a lot of talking around apology, but there was no apology.
There was no apology. The mayor and some of the other commissioners yes, there was a lot of talking about whether somebody should apologize or isn't
Nobody did.
apologizing. Nobody said the words, I apologize. Now,
No.
on
Mhm.
one level, the only person who owes her an apology is Kyle Batty, because it seems like, at least on the surface at this point, we don't have information to the contrary. It seems like the other commissioners, or at least most of them, were just as surprised by this as everybody else.
Mhm.
So again,
Mhm.
imagine being a commissioner and having one of your fellow commissioners drop this bomb on a citizen and suck the whole commission into this. So to the mayor's credit, to the credit of some of the other folks, at least there was some recognition that, oh
Yeah.
my God, this is bad. And
Mhm.
maybe there needs to be an apology. And of course, Batty's response to that was absolute defiance. He tells us in the meeting, tells Kelly, prove me wrong. Maybe if you prove me wrong, maybe I'll apologize.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the
I can
challenge for her.
guarantee you that you're going to read that in the complaint that we file.
Because asking someone to prove a negative, right? Prove that you didn't do this is very different from the burden of proof being on someone to prove that it actually is true. You
Right.
know? Yeah.
Absolutely. So we
Yeah.
don't throw Molotov cocktails like that and then demand that the other side prove that, I did something bad. No, you clearly did something bad. And apparently, for whatever reason, Batty was not getting the message that his commissioners, I think, were trying to send him,
Mhm.
pretty vigorously trying to send him. So either he didn't get that message or he did get the message and was intentionally defiant.
Yeah.
So, he made his stand.
Yeah. Can I ask you, tell me about the difference? It seems to me there's a big difference between, and to your point, we know what people have said in that meeting about the origin of the social media post, which appears totally fake, attributed to Kelly Franklin. Um, but this was something that it wasn't sent to City Hall, or at least we don't really know, right? But the story is that it came through this business. Um, and then there was this need. Obviously, someone's very upset. Commissioner Batty is very upset, but he takes it into a public forum. This wasn't public. It was a pretty amateurish hit job where by a coward who didn't, or we don't know who really created it, right? So this so far is anonymous, by somebody who wants to trash Kelly Franklin. Was there ever a situation where then that kind of a thing should be elevated to by a public figure in a public forum it just seemed bizarre to me that, and yet the way it was presented, Commissioner Trice had said later on in the meeting that the issue has been hijacked. The real issue is this racism, and that's important. But the damage to Kelly Franklin was not the main issue. Can you? It just seems like such a conflating uh, idea, putting things that are apples and oranges together like they're all the same. You know, like this fabricated hit piece deserved to be discussed in a city commission meeting, right? Am I
Yeah,
making sense?
yeah, no, there's a lot going on here,
Mhm.
some of which we know. Um, I probably know more about what actually happened than most folks.
Sure.
And yes, first of all, I think you're right. There's no evidence that this hoax post was ever sent to City Hall, to any other commissioner, to anybody involved in the city in any way. So let's work on the assumption. The story we're being asked to believe
Mhm.
is that this appeared on Kelly's personal Facebook page, doesn't mention Batee by name, just a photograph from the ribbon cutting at Corona Cigar with the words from a completely different post. So we're supposed to believe that this appeared on her personal Facebook page. Nobody saw it.
Mhm.
Far as we know, there exists one printed hard copy of that post, only one in
Mhm.
the entire universe, because the only place that it has ever turned up that we know of
Mhm.
is supposedly at Corona Cigar. Um, that,
Right.
on the face of it, that's a ridiculous story, right?
Yeah.
On the face of it, it's absurd. With any intelligence, especially in today's society, who has any familiarity with social media, uh,
Mhm.
would look at that and say, "Oh, sure, seems legit to me. Let me run with it." So, why, to get to your point,
Mhm.
why? What goal is advanced? What purpose is served by Batee then launching this attack in public? This wasn't a city issue. This wasn't a city problem. It's a
Mhm.
city problem now.
Yeah.
Um, what really was his goal here? Was it just to attack Kathy Franklin because he doesn't like her and
Kelly.
she's
Yeah. Mhm.
Kelly Franklin and she's an outspoken critic of one of the
Mhm.
businesses he supports?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I'd like
Or is it
to.
something else?
Yeah. So just to share, you probably know some of this. Um, there's been an issue. I've been watching city government and county government for 15 years. And there's always been kind of a default defense that they go to, which is almost like, don't be mean to me. They'll take accountability and valid criticism and try to make it personal and brush it aside as if, oh, that person just has an axe to grind. Um, but it's that posture has been heightened greatly at City Hall. It's this, you're being mean to staff. It's kind of, to me, like, really? Kelly engages in the kind of oversight that citizens are supposed to do. That is how our system works. Um, and the particular issue with this business, I have to say, the landlord Lou Donato, and he has obviously a relationship with his tenant Corona Cigar Bar. He came and decried this smear, and he said he would help pay for the investigation, um, and which is terrific. And so there's goodwill there, and that's great. But the reason it's reasonable to wonder about motives here for whoever created this, and the conduit being Corona Cigar Bar, is that the Corona Cigar Bar, Kelly Franklin has effectively put out there and kind of led a charge that this is a business that has outside tables, which are really only supposed to be given to restaurants, and that this is a violation of city code, that secondhand smoke kills, and people don't have a choice when they're walking by whether or not they're going to breathe, right? They should be able to be on a public sidewalk and not be forced to breathe secondhand smoke. And furthermore, the contention is that this particular business has gotten favors or leapfrog from the city, or leapfrogged over city standards that they don't meet. You can't just serve a bowl of peanuts, not have a kitchen, and claim you're a restaurant and put tables outside. And Kelly's been very effective at saying what's going on here, you know, and raising the alarm. And she is personally living with a condition that, you know, cigar smoke is a risk factor for cancer. She understands what this can do to people. And in that regard, the fact that this came through Corona Cigar Bar, and that there's such a, you know, friendly relationship between Commissioner Batty and this particular business, and that, you know, tension between an activist saying, hey, what are you doing here? This isn't allowed. They're not supposed to be getting the use of public right of way. You know, it speaks to me of, and you know, I've talked on other shows, like this business sponsored a mayor's ball, or at least had banners there, and that ball had all kinds of issues with how it came about and the money involved and who was invited and did they pay for their tickets. City commissioners who were there at a $200 a ticket event, were they comped? We don't know, right?
Right.
But that is the background for what's going on here. So is there a motive to smear Kelly Franklin on the part of, you know, is she getting in the way of something that one group of people want and other people don't? Yeah. And she's really effective. She's really smart and she's tireless. So that to me makes it all so much uglier, you know?
Yeah, right. So, I mean, clearly Kelly has been an outspoken critic of Corona Cigar and some of their
Well,
operations.
I would say she's a critic of the city
Well,
and
let's
what they've
she's
done.
a critic of both.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
But okay, so let's take that as a given. She is an outspoken critic, and her criticism may or may not have some impact on that business. Okay, let's accept all those facts as true.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we get back to what I think is the real perplexing piece of this, which is how does this ridiculous Keystone Cops hoax in any way really help Corona Cigar?
Well, but you know, it's that whole smear of racism that we talked about, it being a career-ending, influence-ending thing, right? Going after somebody to mute their.
Right. But we know Corona Cigar has some well-off people behind it.
Mhm.
We know that they have access to resources, presumably, you know, media resources, IT resources. I mean, this looks like something some kid did, you know, in his basement somewhere. And
Right.
how is it, again, this is so bad. They had to know, whoever is responsible for this,
Mm-hmm.
either is really, really, really dumb, or had to know that this was going to fall apart rapidly because it is so just preposterously, transparently a hoax. And it did. And we saw by the end of the day,
Yeah.
it had fallen apart. So it's almost so bad that you have to wonder what was really going on here.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to figure out to the extent the information can be had. We're going to figure out what really happened. Do
Yeah.
I think we're going to get to the point of being able to name the individual that actually created that fake post? I don't know.
Mhm,
I don't know. But we're going to follow the crumbs.
mhm.
And we know that the lady from Corona Cigar who spoke at the meeting was clearly involved somehow in some capacity.
Mhm,
She's got a story. We're going to get her under oath and see what that story turns out to be.
mhm,
How did this document just randomly turn up at Corona Cigar? Why was it crumbled up? She said it came in an envelope. What does that mean? Did somebody drop it off or did it come in the mail? Who was it addressed to? Who opened it? Who crumbled it up and apparently threw it away? And then who decided to go back and get it from wherever it was crumpled up?
mhm.
There's a lot of questions. Um, so, our investigation is underway and we are learning things every day.
Okay. Is there a difference here legally between like defamation versus, I don't know, what is, misuse of public resources? Is this a defamation case legally? Seems
It's a
like
defamation case. Certainly, it may be other things as well. Defamation is making a false statement of fact about somebody to the extent that Batty published this fake post attributed on its face to Kelly. That was a statement he made. He didn't necessarily write the words in the post or create the post himself, but he took it, put it on the screen, and displayed it publicly.
Mhm.
That alone is a defamatory statement, and there may be more things he said along the way. There's also a concept in Florida um, called false light or defamation by implication, which is where you take two things that neither of which are false statements, but you combine them or display them in a way that creates a false connotation.
Mm,
And certainly I think we have that here. And then there are other legal theories that almost certainly will be a part of the lawsuit that we will be filing for Kelly. To the extent we're talking about other things like misuse of city resources,
mhm.
that I would think the city would want to conduct some investigation there
Yeah.
to assure
Yeah.
themselves to understand how did this really happen, and
Mhm.
what are we going to do to make sure this never happens again?
Right.
Right?
Can I
Okay.
ask you, did you find the attorney, Bob Fournier has been the attorney for many years for the city of Sarasota. And actually with this commission in recent years, even within the past year and a half, I've been very surprised at how, they've blown off his legal advice. I mean, it's just, I could think of two instances, one having to do with a situation with housing near the airport where he told them, if you approve this, we're going to get sued. And sure enough, the airport sued, but they just didn't listen to him at all. And then there was something else regarding the Quay where a developer attorney, this commission just went with what the developer attorney said. And Bob usually finds a way to make it happen. He's not someone who says no a lot to the city commission. So with that backdrop of understanding how the recent culture of the city commission is not to listen to him, or to, even when he's really clear that he's got a big concern, they don't say anything. But I still found it very odd that he didn't say anything at all when this was unfolding, and he was there. Any comments or thoughts about that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I know Bob. I've
Great
dealt with
guy.
Bob before.
Mhm,
Great guy. Bob is an
mhm.
excellent lawyer. And every time I have dealt with him,
Yep.
number one, it's always been something crazy at the city of Sarasota, right?
Yeah.
But Bob
Mhm.
is an excellent lawyer and does an outstanding job trying to protect the city, often trying to protect the city from itself,
Right. Oh, yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So, I've been in the situation
Mhm.
where, as lawyers, we can't make anybody do anything. The only thing we can do as lawyers is give advice.
Yes.
And then clients decide whether they choose to follow the advice that we give or not. That's all we can do. Now, if I'm your lawyer and I give you advice and you choose not to follow it, you're not going to hurt my feelings, right?
Right.
I'm
But it
getting
might
paid.
not be the smartest thing to do.
Well, it might not be the smartest thing to do for you, and
Right.
you might
Yeah.
want to start questioning why I'm your lawyer. Why are you paying me good money to give advice that you're not going to follow? Maybe you need a different lawyer. Maybe I'm not the person for you.
Yes.
So yeah, not following legal advice, it really almost never works out. But in this case, to your direct question, you know, why did Bob not say anything during the meeting? I don't know the answer to that. I suspect I can make some assumptions, having been in the same position he was in, having something crazy come out of the blue while you're up there representing the organization. One, I think it's fair to say that he was absolutely as shocked and surprised as anybody. And probably, Bob is I think it's fair to say that Bob is not the kind of person who's going to go too far out on any legal limbs, right?
Right. Right.
Which is
Well,
a good-
on that note, we do need to wrap it up. Richard Harrison, there's a February 5th meeting where Mr. Fournier is going to be bringing this forward. Is there anything particular citizens should be watching for at that meeting?
Yes, and I may be in attendance at that meeting, by the way. So if you're there, I hope to see you.
Yes.
I think that citizens should be looking for Commissioner Batty asking the city to pay whatever legal fees he's about to incur when I sue him, and asking why the city should do that, where he so clearly acted outside of any legitimate role of a government official. The
Yes.
government has no role in policing private speech of private citizens, and that's what this is.
That's what it is.
So if I were the city commission, I would listen politely when Batty says, I'd like you to pay my fees. And I would say, you know what? We're maybe going to wait till this case is over and see how it turns out. And then maybe we'll decide if you should be reimbursed.
Okay.
He
Well,
brought this on himself and he brought it on the city.
yeah, on that note, Richard Harrison, thank you so much for joining me. Everybody, you've been listening to The Detail on WSLR 96.5 LPFM in Sarasota, Florida. Programming at WSLR is supported by listeners like you and by Ringling College Galleries and Exhibitions. Ringling College's 2023-24 exhibition season features art from Ringling students, alumni, faculty, and nationally recognized artists from a wide range of mediums and from diverse backgrounds. More information is available at ringlingcollege.gallery. And be sure to stay tuned for more great public affairs programming here on WSLR. Make it a great day.